Hello and welcome back to Let's Build, guys. Today, as promised, we are doing some finishing touches on the wheat farm, then moving on to the animals. So as you can see, I wanted to take advantage of the cliff face that we had around this farm, so I built a walkway hanging onto the side of it. And then went around putting sort of safety railings in a different coloured wood to help mix it up and add a bit more depth to what was otherwise a pretty plain staircase. I then went around putting oak supports underneath so that the staircase could support itself. And finally some detail, some roofs and fence posts just to add a bit more depth to the walkway. Next, I built a gravel path, changing into gravel, because I wanted to give this the effect that it's not something that was laid there on purpose, but has been worn into the landscape by generations of farmers walking these paths. And then fenced off an area for a chicken hutch, and built up an area that they could go inside to lay their eggs and stay warm on the nights. After that, I decided to put a bit more depth onto the front of it. As you can see, coming around, adding in some deviations from the flat block face that you know I hate, to add a bit more depth. And finally filled it with chickens. Now, this is the area that you guys saw me mark out last time. It's a good place for a large, open, free-range herding area. But if you look at normal farms, they always are split into sections for each animal, but there's always one section not being used, because as animals live in an area they use up all the materials there, and that needs time to grow back. So I did something very similar. I split this into 3 sections, planning on filling one with cows, one with sheep, and leaving one blank for rest. And I have done that, although because of the distance of that far pen you cannot actually see the cows very well. But you'll have to trust me on that one, guys. Finally for today, I set about building a barn house, somewhere the animals could be taken to be milked or to have their wool harvested, or if they became ill or needed nurture, a place they could be taken aside from the rest of the animals. I wanted to build this as a fairly large open plan building, but I realised that having a massive peaked roof of this size would be impractical and would look out of place in our village. So instead I built a 3 peaked roof to keep the total height lower and more subtle. Coming round to the front, I knocked out the wooden beams I'd put in to help me place the staircases, and put upside down steps to make the change a bit smoother. I then played around trying to get a design I liked on the front of the building. I wanted this to seem fairly plain, as if it was constructed on the bare minimum, but I didn't want it to be a boring, bland looking build either, so I had to add some detail to stop it looking too plain. Round the side now, I put in a window arch, and repeated the same thing on the opposite side, to let some light into this building. So no matter how poorly it was built, it still needs that light. And finally, I repeated a pattern on the background and ran around the sides, adding a bit more detail with fence, as I felt it was a bit too bland still. Coming into the interior now. Interior is not really something we've touched on much in this series, but I felt with it being an open plan building and a very specifically used one, that I really should. So I knocked out all the grass, levelled it off with some wooden walls, and got rid of the stone on the floor, again replacing it with grass. And after that, I marked out some pens and some wooden beams on the roof to add lots of detail and make it seem like a very busy place. Filling those in with fence posts, and then moving on to making the doors of our barn. One open, one closed, allowing people to see in, but also get the feel of what these structures are. And there we have it, guys. Another Let's Build down. And our village is really coming along. I'm getting a nice landscape built up here. So a quick overview of what we did today. We built this walkway spanning up and above the wheat farms around the water drop. I'm quite happy with how this turned out. I didn't want it all on one level, so I put in some stairs and some joints here and there. And I curved it around this corner with the water just to make it a little less plain and boring. Again, that is why I had things like this shaded area and these fence posts, just to add a bit of depth and make something that is very easy to be a plain, boring structure a little bit more exciting. I like the effect of the gravel paths worn into the landscape. Up here we see the chicken coop that we built. I'm still not really sure if that's the right word or not. I'm very happy with how this turned out, because typically a chicken coop is just a square wooden box, but obviously that would look terrible in our Minecraft world, our village. So I had to do something with depth that wouldn't be too ridiculous. That's perfect timing. The chicken's just walked in there to lay an egg. We'll give her some privacy. Moving over here, I can show you now all the cows in their farm and all the sheep in theirs. Of course, being in Minecraft, there's always the issue that some animals will spawn, like these two cows have, and I think there's a chicken there that's not should be there. And that is an issue, but it's not one that we can combat. And although it may remove some of the realism of this farm, I don't think it's a large issue. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. You can see the three areas, one resting and regrowing all its grass and crops before the next animals are moved in next year. You can see there's water holes divided up so that all the pens get a place to stay. And here's the main building that we did today. This was a very difficult one for me, because I really wanted to give the effect that this was built very poorly, using limited materials and limited skill. But the problem with that is, to get that effect you would normally build with very little detail and depth. And there's a very fine balance between something looking as if it was built unskilled and something looking like you just haven't put effort into it. And I didn't want to fall into that second category. So, I don't know. It's not the best build I've done, I know that, but I never planned for it to be. I think it serves its purpose well. I like the effect of having one door open and one closed, and these wooden railings across the ceiling with the torches in them. Overall, I'm happy. I don't think it's my best work. I'm sure I could have worked a bit more depth onto the outside of this building, still without ruining it and making it seem too complicated and out of place. I am very happy with the three-peaked roof. I think that solves the issue of having a massively tall peak that would look completely out of place. So I am very happy with that. And now it means that this whole area, the farming area of our village, is complete. There's no more for us to do in the way of farming, which means we need to expand our village out into the plains. Look at more things that we're going to build. I have a few ideas, but I really want to have your input on this village. This is a project we're tackling together. I don't want it to be just my ideas, so please leave comments letting me know what buildings you would like to see me build next, and I'll make sure I definitely implement them, as long as they make sense in our village. So as usual, thank you very much for watching. Leave a like or a dislike to let me know if you want this series to continue. It's the only way I can tell if it's something you're enjoying or not. And as always, I'm very open for any criticism, as long as it's constructive, for the work I've been doing. So I'm sure you guys will have a better idea on how I can improve that barn. Maybe something we come back to at a later date. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, guys.